Support for Louisiana, the state we're in, is provided by...
Every day, I go to work for Entergy.
I know customers are counting on me.
So Entergy is investing millions of dollars
to keep the lights on
and installing new technology
to prevent outages before they happen.
Together,
we power life.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
And we'll see if the legislature responds and does something different.
The latest on congressional map redistricting.
So the key thing is, this is paradise.
A check on Grand Isle recovery with the mayor.
It's a lot of things, certainly. It is right values, it is mental health, but it is guns. It's not either or. It's not this divisive rhetoric. It's yes and I think that's a big part of it.
A mass shooting survivor a decade later.
Juneteenth is an important holiday because it reminds us of how far we have come, but how much we still have to do.
Uncovering the true history of Juneteenth.
Hi everyone, I'm Kara St. Cyr.
And I'm Andre Morrow. Vaccines for babies and toddlers are inching closer to becoming a reality. The FDA's advisors endorsed the administration of Moderna and Pfizer shots.
Now, if these shots are approved for children under 5, it would help close the 18 million person vaccine gap in the U.S. Babies and toddlers are the last group without vaccine clearance.
Also this week, I know you've noticed the heat outside. It is really hot, and it's not getting cooler anytime soon at all. In fact, just hotter as we moved into the summer, only June right now.
Now, the National Weather Service in Slidell is predicting temperatures in the hundreds for the next 2 weeks. That would be normal weather if we were in the middle of summer, but it's June right now.
Yeah.
For this month, that's pretty above average.
It definitely is. So you know the routine. They say stay hydrated, wear sunscreen. That will help tremendously. Now let's check out some of the other news headlines from across the state.
The cost of filling up your car continues to rise. This week, the average cost of gas in Louisiana jumped to $4.56 a gallon, while nationally, AAA says the price per gallon went to an all-time high at $5.01. California has the highest average at $6.44 a gallon. President Joe Biden is chastising some of the largest oil companies for profiteering off surging energy prices and worsening that pain for people. He's telling refiners, produce more gas and fewer profits. On Wednesday, Biden nominated a New Orleans magistrate to become the first minority woman on the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. U.S. Magistrate Dana Douglas now awaits confirmation by the U.S. Senate. Finally, a proper burial will come for a U.S. sailor from Washington Parish, unaccounted for since the 1941 Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Navy Seaman First Class Houston Temples, who was 24 at the time of the attack, was assigned to the battleship USS Oklahoma during World War II and was among 400 men who died when it sank December 7, 1941. The remains of many of those who perished were never identified. A new Miss Louisiana will be crowned Saturday night in Monroe. 29 women are competing for the title. The winner will go on to the Miss America pageant. Julia Claire Williams of Kinder is the reigning Miss Louisiana.
The legislative session ended in what Governor John Bel Edwards called a success, but lawmakers still have some loose ends to tie up, namely the congressional map redistricting. Back before session started, the governor asked that lawmakers delay any decisions on the map until more energy could be focused on it, and that time has finally come. A special session began Wednesday to discuss how to redraw those districts. Here to go through the process with me is Jim Inkster, a political consultant and president of Louisiana Network. Thank you for joining me.
Nice to be with you, Kara.
All right, so let's just get into it. So a judge ruled that lawmakers would now have 5 days to redraw this map. Were you surprised at all by this ruling?
Well, Judge Shelley Dick was a Barack Obama appointee, so she was appointed by a Democratic president. We have a Democratic governor who vetoed this, and then a Republican legislature overrode his veto. And even though politics is not supposed to be in this, there is a political element. But the judge made a compelling case that this is a blatant violation of the Voting Rights Act because we have a population in Louisiana that's 1/3 African American. We have 6 congressional seats, and simple math is that 1/3 of 6 is 2. And the Fifth Circuit, that may have been the biggest surprise, they allowed this to go forward as far as having to go back to the drawing board. And so lawmakers have reconvened, and really where it goes from here is subject to conjecture in a huge, huge way.
So a lot of lawmakers were arguing that, 5 days is just not enough time, even though they've had this, this whole debacle over this map for quite a while now. Why is that the argument?
Well, they have debated this, and there are several maps out there, and they may be just buying time, and there's several hoops yet to go through. For example, the Fifth Circuit still has a hearing on July 8th, and lawmakers have options. They could do the same thing they did last time and defy the judge. They could redraw the maps to the judge's liking, or they could do something in the middle, but ultimately there will be more court action, and we've got to get this done because there's an election on November 8th. But the judge has been rather profound in saying, look, what you've done so far doesn't work, and we'll see if the legislature responds and does something different, or whether they defy Judge Dick.
So whenever it comes to actually making changes, there's actual change and then there's cosmetic changes. What's an example of a cosmetic change that they could make?
Well, the districts right now are such that it's almost impossible for anything other than 5 white Republicans and 1 black Democrat to be reelected. Now, they could make some changes that could keep that the way it is based on simple math and yet look like they're actually redrawing districts, and they are to some extent, but the end game is what Judge Dick was looking at, and she believes that it's unfair for a state with 1/3 of its population being black not to have 2 districts that are black majority in a state that it has 6 congressional districts. And she has a good point, and it was compelling enough that the Fifth Circuit, and at least in round 1, ruled in the favor of the judge.
There are people that came together to oppose this map, saying that, it was a violation of the Voting Rights Act, and ultimately these people did sue. So suppose nothing changes to the map at all. What happens to this lawsuit?
Well, we've had similar cases in other states. For example, in Alabama, we had a case extremely similar to this one, and the Supreme Court got involved and said, look, you got to do the maps the way the legislature wanted because there isn't enough time. But they have party primaries in Alabama. We don't. We have an open primary. Our first election for Congress is on November 8th. So there is time, and there is an inclination, at least from the federal judge, that we should go in a different direction. Now, the lawmakers may be betting on the Fifth Circuit overturning Judge Dick, or they may be betting on going all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. But they also have these incumbents, 6 of them that were elected under the current system who like it a lot the way it is, and they're leaning on them. So there is an abundance of pressure on the Louisiana legislature to keep things the way they are. And the question is whether that political pressure will exceed the judicial pressure, which the judge has exerted. The judge, of course, has said that this is not right, that it's against federal law, that you've got to do something different. But the Louisiana legislature could say, look, we're going to challenge you. We're going to take you on, Judge Dick. We're going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to.
So this really could go in either direction. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for you coming and talking with us about this. Again, Jim Inkster is a political consultant, and he's also president of the Louisiana Network. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kara.
For the first time in 30 years, 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans announced a breakthrough agreement on gun violence. Senator Bill Cassidy is one of those 20 proposing this legislation. If approved, Congress would provide major funding to help states pass and enact red flag laws. Another aspect is increased funding for mental health counseling in schools.
I work to ensure that this agreement gives adequate attention to addressing mental health issues and securing schools to ensure the safety of our children. I think we can all agree that violent criminals, or those who have been deemed to be a danger to themselves or others by a court of law, should not have access to weapons. On the other hand, we recognize that the rights of law-abiding Americans should not be infringed upon because of the actions of criminals.
So you have Senator Cassidy talking about common sense gun reform, as he calls it. We've heard from actor Matthew McConaughey talking about gun responsibility with great emotion. With me right now is Max Zoghbi, husband of Bonnie Kate Zoghbi. We know right. Bonnie Kate, of course, from her mother and from all the things she's done with gardens lately. Yep. Bonnie Kate also, though, is coming up 10 years from being thrust into the national spotlight when she was sitting in a Colorado theater. A gunman came in, she was shot, wounded severely. She survived, but physically, how is she 10 years later, Max?
It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. The past 10 years have been a severe mercy for us. We have the privilege of her being here and being alive, of course. A lot of people can't say that from these various incidences, but it's hard. It's hard. She's in pain every day. She has a fatigue from that pain that knocks her out. Certainly we wish we had the privilege of being able to walk around the lakes together, walk downtown, exercise. That's something that's not part of our story.
Yeah, see, that's amazing. Her knee was really shattered.
Yeah.
And people, you hear so much about those that lose their lives, and of course, but yeah. With the survivors, you just think, okay, well, they go on and live their life normally.
Sure.
That's not the case
at
all.
It's not.
She uses crutches. She's in pain, as you say.
Yeah, we go to the airport, we need a wheelchair. Go to a museum, need a wheelchair. Walking long distances, need a wheelchair. Crutch every day. Could it be worse? Certainly. She has mental, capacity and is sentient and can walk, and she has all of her limbs, but it's still a very real thing, and it will continue to be.
And you're here.
Yeah.
Because it's really difficult for her to talk about it.
As you'd imagine it is. And it's difficult for me too. It's difficult for all of us, our whole family, when something like this happens. It's it's that kind of residual trauma that just reminds you and takes you back, and it's hard. That's right.
Every time there's a mass shooting, and there have been so many, especially recently it seems, but it's really more than we even hear about. How does that impact the both of you?
It's troubling. It's heartbreaking. I think part of any trauma and any grief is just coming to that place of acceptance time and time again. So it kind of gut checks us, like, oh, this is actually still a part of our story. It takes you back to things you want to forget and move past. But that's been our life. Is just this journey of acceptance, continual forgiveness, and just learning how to deal with the emotional, physical, lasting effects of trauma that we have. And again, I really do believe we're so blessed and have it so well in consideration of so many others.
Yeah, you mentioned continual forgiveness, and I'm thinking that's of the shooter.
That's right.
In this case.
That's
which,
right.
Boy, I mean,
right.
When it's so long from when it happened, you don't really think about that, but that's probably a daily thing also.
I've learned forgiveness is a journey. It's a thing that you come up against and bump up against time and time again. Bonnie Kate will have these things happen sometimes with her knee where there's a bone fragment or shrapnel or something will just like lock it up, and she's not able to walk at all, and she's in extreme pain, and it can go on for a day or a week. And it's times like that, and maybe certainly when we have kids and have to figure out how do I push a stroller in a wheelchair. I think it's just those moments of reminding our life isn't normal.
Yeah.
And there are real lasting repercussions from this horribly, unnecessarily evil, violent thing that happened, and it's hard.
She has done everything I think that's possible.
Yeah, over 7, 8 surgeries.
I'm sure people ask, why can't they fix it?
That's right. Why can't they fix it? Is because when you get shot with a high velocity assault rifle bullet,
right.
Those are bullets that have a place, and they're meant to do exactly what they did to her knee, which is destroy. It goes in and it explodes, and that's their job. Just not in a movie theater.
Yeah.
To someone's knee.
So your thoughts and her thoughts on this ongoing conversation about gun laws and what should be changed, and people who say no, it's our rights, and that whole conversation. Where are you on this?
It's a big conversation. It's easy to get emotional because it plays on a lot of people's intrinsic values and beliefs, and so we tend to guard those. Right, with our lizard brain, it's hard to have a rhetoric and civil discourse. I'm not the expert. I don't have all the answers, but as much as one can, researching and trying to get a grasp on things as anyone else does, it seems to seems to me that surely sounder minds will prevail, and there has to be a considered, logical, reasonable, more helpful approach that I think will actually require concession from both sides meaning political sides.
Yeah.
That there seems to be an overwhelming majority of things I've read online and a lot of conversations I've had with friends and family on both sides, that seems to be this kind of third nuanced approach that says there are some things that can be done, laws that already exist that need to be enacted, and some really common sense things that any responsible gun owner who wants to carry a weapon, as I often do, for the sake of defending and preserving life should the worst happen, should get behind and would be happy to abide by. We have seatbelts, we have nutrition labels. There are common sense things that don't necessarily have to infringe upon these freedoms that people so understandably and viscerally hold on to. I think there's a middle ground, and I really hope we can reach it.
Max, thank you so much for being here. Our love to you, our love to Bonnie Kate.
Yeah, thank you.
Prayers for her always, and to both of you, thank you.
Thanks, Andre. Yeah.
We went to Grand Isle this week to see how things look now that we are in the throes of another hurricane season. How's recovery going? Mayor David Carmodale says that the Army Corps of Engineers will finally begin a $122 million project to repair storm defenses. He's big on those rock barriers just offshore, but says they cannot put them in fast enough.
So you got to D.C., you're talking to the president, you're talking to all the Louisiana delegation, and where do you stand?
Well, we talked to the president right after the storm. You're looking at about maybe a month after the storm. We met him in Galiana,
right?
And we told him that we lost our beach, and he flew over before he met with us,
right?
And he got to see the island, and we met with him in the meeting. And one of the questions, they had like 5 of us in the meeting: the parish presidents, the Mayor Lafitte, and myself. So it was very impressive. My deal was, Mr. President, we lost the island and different cuts of the island where the Corps built the rocks, and all I'm asking you is for about $50 million to come in, and we can put these rocks and continue where they're working on the eastern side.
We're at hurricane season, it's underway,
right?
And we've already had something kind of go through the Gulf already,
yeah.
And yet the rocks that you wanted are not there now.
Exactly.
Yet.
Yeah, exactly. We worked hard. We worked with Congressman Steve Scalise and Senator Kennedy and Senator Cassidy and even Gary Graves and Troy Carter. These guys came in and visited the site, and they went back to Washington, and the president got back, and they said they were going to work something, and they're going to push the Corps, and that's what they've done. They brought $122 million. You've seen it on the news a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Talking to the colonel, and it's in phases. So you're going to see some rocks coming in the next couple of weeks to come in and put a couple of rock segments on toward Caminada side on the west side. But
I know you're happy about that.
I am. I'm not. But the idea is, it's hurricane season. It took 9 months.
Yes.
And we had a hurricane last week. Went to Florida.
Yeah.
We got something brewing out right now that might get in the Gulf. Hopefully not. Look like it's going toward Mexico. But here we are. We're just in June, and you're gonna see. They're gonna come with the first phase. I got 12 gaps in the levee, and what's happening? They're gonna come in and put some sandbags, which we already have. We've been there for 9 months, and the sun's deteriorating as we speak. So I know it's a patch-up job, but if they could have came and just, again, take $50 million and start putting rocks, barges of rocks, and just continue putting them, going toward the east. And you'll never see me on the east side of the island.
Right.
It heals.
Right.
The burrito levee's still there.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing.
You see it there. And so they're going to come in now, they're convinced they're going to put clay on top. And I've been convinced way back since Isidore and Lily hit.
Yeah.
The burrito levee, we come up with a design, and we asked for clay inside. No, they want to put sand. So what I did is I put clay on top of it, and that stayed. With Hurricane Ida, it stayed. It's a win-win situation. The money's there, but they won't finish this until the February 23 into 24. So we're going through maybe 2 more hurricane seasons.
You're right.
So things are going to change.
Yeah.
And
no guarantee that nothing's going to come next month, or next week.
And it's like, how you go every 6 months and beg for knock on the senator's door, the congress's door for the same project, when I can use that money for something else. But again, we're going to work with them, and you're going to see some rocks coming in the next 2-3 weeks in Caminada Bay, Caminada Pass, and then they'll be working at the Gulf side.
Carmidel has been mayor since 1997, guiding Grand Isle through whatever comes. During our interview, he took off to help a boater being pushed by waves onto the beach. Another man also helped, as did LPB photographer Rex Q. Fortenberry. And it took all of them to keep the boat from running aground. It's a testament to the mayor's love for his island.
So the key thing is, this is paradise. I had one reporter from Fox News come up to me and says, why do you want to still live here? And I said, well, look, when he came over this levee, we'll get ready to show you. He seen the crabs and the shrimp and the kids running all over. Like, I said, well, the United States take care of Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. Well, this is Grand Isle. I told the truth. It's like, there's no crime. You can sleep with the windows open, leave the keys in your car. And I mean, we know where people's at. You know, even though I got about 45% of my people back, it's things are getting better. You know, but if you don't leave and go out of town to hustle the money and try to just make your name, Grand Isle's worth saving, makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it sure does. Mayor, thanks so much for the update. Always good to see you, and congrats on being a newlywed. All the happiness for you and your bride.
African Americans have celebrated Juneteenth since the late 1800s to commemorate the ending of slavery. The United States officially recognized the holiday 1 year ago in 2021. But even then, the true meaning of Juneteenth isn't known to everyone. Tonight, Dr. Stephen Finley, a professor at LSU, pieces together the history of the holiday.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.
We take the idea of freedom for granted.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
But there was a time in America's history when everyone didn't have it.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench and they put you up on the bench and bid on you, the same as bidding on cattle, you know.
American chattel slavery started in 1619, leaving a legacy of pain and political unrest in its wake, until it was formally ended nearly 250 years later.
Well, can you remember how what happened when they set you free?
I remember, the time they give them a big dinner, on the 19th.
Is that right?
On the 19th, that's called, they said they give them a big dinner on the 19th.
But when the last of the slaves in Texas found out that they were free on June 19, 1865, history will call that day Juneteenth.
There are a lot of myths around Juneteenth. One of the biggest is that it ended slavery. And of course, we know that wasn't the case. More than one state still held on to slavery, and it took the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery in states like Delaware. The other important myth, or one of the important myths, was again related to that Texas was the last state to abolish slavery. It was not.
What Juneteenth actually was a celebration. When Abraham Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, it declared that all persons held as slaves are and henceforward shall be free. But news didn't travel fast. Some slave owners ignored the order, while others moved their slaves out west to avoid run-ins with Union soldiers.
And old Marshall didn't tell it was free.
He didn't tell you that?
No, he didn't tell. They waited. I think now they say they wait them 6 months out of that. 6 months. And turn them loose on the 19th of June.
Union soldiers spread the news in Texas, officially ending slavery for the blacks that lived there.
Some of the narratives suggest that slave owners in Texas knew about the Emancipation Proclamation, and maybe they did, but didn't want to release their slaves for economic reasons. Others suggest that, we didn't have internet back then, and that it took 2.5 years for the word to get to Galveston, Texas. And of course, the Union Army had to enforce President Lincoln's word about emancipation. And so some suggest that it took that long to get a Union soldier there to make the announcement to slaves.
When slaves heard that they were free, celebrations ensued.
That's why you celebrate that day, colored folks. celebrates that day.
And this particular emancipation celebration in Texas would turn into the national holiday we know today.
Juneteenth celebrations have always been about the arts as well. Gospel music, poetry, the Negro National Anthem. These are all things that you're going to find at almost every African American celebration of Juneteenth, which I also want to understand as religious holidays.
But after slavery was abolished, former slaves now faced an unknown world and lots of confusion.
What does one do with one's identity and one's life if slavery is abolished? And this is why some people didn't leave the plantations. Where were they supposed to go? What were they supposed to do? I mean, so there's all kind of competing emotional, religious, and economic factors and things that people have to consider. All that time they had known themselves as enslaved folks. What were they supposed to do now? And so it was confusing.
The 13th Amendment became a law the same year as that first Juneteenth celebration. The rest of America's relationship with former slaves and their descendants would be a rocky one. But historians say that's even more of a reason to celebrate and remember.
Juneteenth is an important holiday because it reminds us of how far we have come, but how much we still have to do. Juneteenth reminds us that we have to struggle for our freedom. No one gave it to us. And it's a reminder that the future is uncertain, but that we have to fight for what's ours. We have to fight for the freedom to be who we are and to celebrate our lives and our culture. And Juneteenth gives us a space to stop and to reflect on where we are and what we have done to get here.
Now, Texas is the site of the original Juneteenth celebrations, but Finley says it's likely former slaves had their own version of the holiday in places like Louisiana as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it should be, huh?
Yeah, it's nice to see that that holiday is finally recognized.
Yeah, for sure. Well, everyone, that is our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime, wherever you are, with our LPB PBS app.
You can catch LPB News and public affairs shows, as well as other Louisiana programs you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram.
That's right. For everyone here at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Morrow.
And I'm Kara St. Cyr.
Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support for Louisiana, the state we're in, is provided by...
Every day, I go to work for Entergy.
I know customers are counting on me.
So Entergy is investing millions of dollars to keep the lights on and installing new technology
to prevent outages before they happen.
Together.
We power life.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.